Is 39 degrees cold enough for a cold plunge? And the reason why you might be asking yourself that is because if you've been shopping for a chiller and came across Plunge, the Plunge Evolved chillers, on the one side the standard chiller, which cools the water down to 39 degrees, and on the other side you have the Pro chiller, which can go down to 37 degrees. And so the question is it worth investing in a Pro chiller because it gets a little bit colder? And is 39 degrees cold enough? So in this video we're gonna answer all of that, and I'll also share with you which my favorite chiller is and why. Not just based on specs that you can look up online, but really what that means from a practical perspective in the sense of, quality of the water, ongoing maintenance, and noise, and anything in between. So let's talk about those two chillers. Well, as I said, I have two chillers here, the standard as well as the Pro. They are both hooked up to the Plunge Evolved pod, which we have a separate review for. You want to check that out. It's really a very, very nice tub that I've been using a lot lately. And so again, besides temperature difference, 39 degrees, 37 degrees, there is also a difference in horsepower. This is half an horsepower chiller, so it means it consumes less energy. Obviously, it's less powerful. It potentially moves less water as well. This is a 1 horsepower chiller, which, well, requires more electricity. So if they are running 24/7, that might make a difference for you. Maybe the biggest difference between these two chillers, as far as I'm concerned, is the noise level. The standard chiller is, comparatively speaking, to the Pro, noisy. Now, I had the original version, the first iteration of the standard chiller, and it was really loud. And that's one of the things that I pointed out during my review of the Plunge Air, the inflatable tub that Plunge has to offer. I now received a second generation chiller, which is not quite as loud, but significantly louder than the Pro chiller. And we're gonna roll some B-roll here momentarily so you can really hear the difference between the standard and the Pro. So check it out. This is the standard chiller. And this is how much noise or lack thereof the Pro chiller makes. Now here's the thing, that starts the noise of the fan going. Chilling is not necessarily turned on yet, meaning that this is just a noise that it makes all the time. It gets a little bit louder when the chiller kicks in. So this is just a water pump, basically, that circulates the water. When the chiller kicks in and it's actively cooling, it's even a little bit louder. And you can probably tell there is quite a difference between the standard and the Pro. And the practical implication for us is that, we have those chillers out here adjacent to our dining table that we use when we eat outdoors or when we are here. And it makes a difference when you sit there and want to have a quiet conversation and the chiller kicks in because the water temperature just rose a little bit and it wants to cool it down. It can be a nuisance at the end of the day. And so that's something that I would recommend you take into account. The second thing that's maybe equally important, or maybe more important depending on who you are, is the filtration and sanitation capability of those two units. Now this guy here has a standard sediment filter. It does not have ozone or UV, so it just relies on sediment filtration. It has a pre-filter and then the main sediment filter. And what that means is basically that you have to probably use non-toxic water treatment solutions like hydrogen peroxide to keep the water sanitary for extended periods, because there is nothing in there in that unit that would kill pathogens like bacteria, viruses, or something in between, because it doesn't have the ozone. That's really the biggest downside from a water quality perspective. The second aspect of that relatively small filter cartridge is that you have to replace it very often. Again, depending on how often you plunge, how much debris you get in there, and various other factors. We have to replace that cartridge approximately every, I want to say, 2 to 3 weeks to maintain proper water flow, because as the cartridge fills up, as it gets dirty, water flow is reduced. That puts strain on the equipment, on the water pump, but also it means there's less water flow in there and the water is not as sanitary as it would be with proper water flow. Over here, we have a massive filtration cartridge that I really like, because that means more surface area, better water flow, higher water flow, and less frequent filter changes. So you can get away with changing that filter maybe every 1 or 2 months or so without negatively impacting water flow, without negatively impacting water quality. And it also has the ozone filtration. In fact, when you remove the lid, you can smell the ozone, indicating that that water has been properly sanitized. So I like that really a lot. Now, obviously, there is a difference in terms of pricing. Pricing wise, this guy retails for $2,999, so let's say $3,000, whereas this, on the other hand, here retails for $4,000. 4,499 or 4,500. That's, if my math is correct, like a 50% price difference. That is significant. And so the question is it worth going with the Pro chiller, or should you rather stick with the standard chiller? And my recommendation is, if you just cold plunge every so often, maybe once, twice a week or so, it's not something that you would do every day. You're not gonna do it back to back, maybe with your partner or with your spouse, and you're okay with maybe using non-toxic water treatment solutions and replacing maybe the water more often, replacing the filtration cartridge more often, and in return having a unit that consumes less electricity, less power, then the standard chiller is perfectly fine. If you're more serious about cold plunging, if you do it several times a week, maybe back to back with someone else, if you're not the only one plunging, if you have it somewhere where noise levels are important, so you want to keep it as quiet as possible, if you really appreciate less maintenance, less filter changes, less water changes, higher quality or more sanitary water at the end of the day, especially if you plunge more often, then this one is the way to go in my opinion. I've really come to appreciate the Pro chiller because it's incredibly quiet. You don't hear this guy. I mean, you cannot hear this even if it's actively cooling. It looks pretty sleek. The filter is easy to change, easier, because all you have to do is lift up here and twist it out. Whereas on the other one, it's on the back and it's a little bit more awkward to twist out the filter, but no big deal either. One thing that both have in common, and that's not necessarily a good thing, is the way the plumbing is routed. It determines where the chiller has to be. So you can position the chiller only on the head end here of the tub. So you cannot have it on the other side. You cannot have it in front. You cannot have it on the back if you just want to have a cleaner kind of picture, because the way the plumbing is routed. Now you can do your own plumbing and work around that issue, but if you use the tubing that come with the chiller, then you have to position the chiller on the side of the tub, I should say. And the other thing is the display. Both of them have displays on the front. They are not incredibly easy to read, especially in bright daylight. They are perfectly easy to read at night or when it's dark, but in bright daylight it's a little bit difficult, and I think Plunge could improve on that and make them easier to read at the end of the day in daylight. Both are connected, meaning that they have Wi-Fi capabilities. You can use the Plunge app to turn them on and off and change the temperature and everything. One thing that I've not seen in there is the ability to schedule when the Plunge comes on and off. That's something I think Plunge could add as well. That would really be a nice touch. But yeah, beyond that, both are good chillers. I really like the Pro chiller. Yes, it's more expensive, 50% more expensive, but I think if you're serious about plunging, this is the way to go. If you're on a budget and don't mind a little bit more noise, a little bit more frequent filter changes, a little bit more frequent water changes maybe, or adding non-toxic water treatment solutions, the standard chiller is perfectly fine. But as far as I'm concerned, I really love this one. So with that, we're gonna wrap it up. I hope you like this video. If you want to know more about some of the Plunge tubs that I have, like the Air, like the Pod, and the classic one, the OG Plunge, that was the very first Plunge that I've ever owned, check out my YouTube channel for more information. We're gonna link some of those videos down below in the description so you can easily find them and watch them as well. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about? What's your preferred chiller? Do you own one of those two? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you like? What do you don't like? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.